Hello everyone, I'm Nathaniel Freeman and this is Freeman's Money. And today we're going to be talking about what the difference is between an asset and a liability. Now, before we get into it, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not, this is just a disclaimer, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just a guy doing this myself. These are my opinions and the opinions I read off of reading books and doing it myself. But I am a mortgage agent, so your house can be a liability or an asset. It depends. We'll get into that. And but I'm not a financial advisor. And if you really want to get to know this stuff, I recommend you guys contacting one. If you live around my area, then feel free to contact me and I can set you up with someone. But since we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the difference between an asset and a liability. So, broad definitions, an asset is something that brings you in money every month, and a liability is something that takes money away from you every month. So let me give you an example of assets. So an asset would be like having a rental property. An asset would be owning stocks that pay dividends. Stocks in general that are going up and generating you money. Royalties on some kind of music or something you make. You wouldn't really consider a job in the asset category. We would break those into a different section, but anything that you have bought and that generates you money, that's an asset. Now, liability is something that takes away money, so that would be like a co-payment would be considered a liability. Now, never mind, we'll get into that later on. But like co-payments, anything you're paying off, credit card debt, lines of credit loans, those are the kinds of things that we would consider liabilities. Now, things can shift categories. So let me give you an example. If you have a vehicle, when you buy it, and if you're just using it just to run around, you don't really need it, but you like having a car, then that's a liability because it's not generating you any money. Now, let's say you start to work for Uber, then that car becomes an asset because it's now helping you generate cash flow. And the other thing with, let's say you get a car, let's say you buy a brand new vehicle for 2,000 or not 2,000, 25,000, let's say. Now, you're making your monthly payments towards that. Now, your car itself is considered an asset, but the debt on that would be considered a liability. So, all in all, you're causing both assets at the same time. And the same can be said for your house. So, if your house, you're renting out rooms and stuff like that, that's good. That's creating it into an asset. However, when you have a mortgage on it, the mortgage is considered a liability, but your house is an asset. Or when you go to sell the house, it's an asset then because it's generating you cash flow. Now, I know that's a bit controversial, but with the definitions that we're going to go with, it makes complete sense. Since I just own my home and I'm not renting out any space right now, it would be considered a liability on my part. Now, financially, it's considered a liability. There are plenty of other aspects of it that make it into an asset. We'll get into that at some other point, but just from a financial standpoint, having a mortgage on a house when it's not generating you cash flow would be considered a liability. Now, you do have to live somewhere, but I think I'm going to make a whole video about the difference or whether or not your house is an asset or a liability and how that changes and the different factors that you have to consider. And I'll make a whole video on that. So if you have any comments or any questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. But I'll be adding more to that in a later video. But the main thing is, when we're building our portfolios, we want to buy assets and not liabilities. And if we can, we want our assets to pay for our liabilities and create an income at some point. So if you have enough rental properties, enough stocks, enough dividend paying stocks, enough bonds, like however you want to manage out your portfolio, when you build that up to the point where it replaces your income and pays for all your debts and your liabilities, that's when you really start to generate financial wealth. As you go towards that, you're generating wealth, but it just hasn't taken over yet. Um, but the main thing to focus on here is when you buy assets, you want to buy something that generates you money. If you're buying a liability, it's something that costs you money. Let me give you another example. If you want to start an online business, when you first create the asset and you pay for the domain name and all that stuff, that's a liability because it's not generating any money yet. Once it starts generating you money, it moves into the asset category. So just because you paid for it once doesn't mean it won't become something else, but you should have a plan to move something from one section to the other section. Now you may be wondering, I used the cone as an example, and you might be like, well, I may not need I may not need a co, but I need to go get groceries. It's convenient. It does all this for me, and I'm not disagreeing with you there. But when you're considering buying liabilities, you should consider what they're being used for and how much they're going to cost you. So instead of buying something that costs $25,000, maybe you just go and get a $6,000 car that still looks like it's in good condition. It's going to last a little while, and then you save that extra $19,000. Um, it's just things like that to consider. It's not that I would recommend you strongly only buy assets. That's what I'm trying to do. But you obviously do have to buy some liabilities on the way, and some things that are liabilities turn into assets, and assets can turn into liabilities if they start losing you money. So I just wanted to be clear about what an asset is, what a liability is. Hey, I hope this helped you guys out. If you like these kind of videos, I'm making a lot of financial stuff right now. We're gonna get into some other stuff later on, but we'll deal with that then. If you guys like the videos, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you next week. Have a good night.